In this week's Parsha, there's a lot of amazing things that happen. If we had to sort of sum up what is the theme of the Parsha? What's the theme of this week's Parsha? Parshas told us. Parshas Chayei, sorry, actually. So I almost made a mistake. So what's the theme of the Parsha? So it would seem that the theme of the Parsha is yichudim, is people coming together, relationships. The most obvious part of the parsha, which is about relationships and about shidduchim and about, building a deep bond between one person and another, is certainly the part of the parsha, which is most of the parsha, which is about Eleazar finding Rivka for shidduch with Yitzchak Avinu, right? So that's shidduchim. That's about relationships. The truth is, even in the very, very beginning, where we have the death of Sarah Imenu, which would seem to be, breaking the relationship between Avram and Sarah. The truth is that this is the first place, and one of the only places in all of Chumash, that we find a person mourning over the loss of someone else. Right? That after Sarah Imenu passes away, that Avram Avinu comes lispai l'sarv l'vkaisa to cry and to mourn over Sarah Imenu, which in truth is an indication about how close they were. Right? This is the only couple we find that. We don't really find that term anywhere else, that after the death of a spouse, the other one comes to mourn and to cry. That's a sign of their deep relationship, Avram Avinu and Sarah Imenu. So the theme of the parsha in general is shidduchim, people coming together, developing a relationship. So I think it would be appropriate maybe to spend a few minutes to talk about something that I've been asked a lot about this week and this past week in different ways, which is about how does one begin to develop a relationship with Hashem? How do you even begin? What's the path to have such a relationship? So let's put it this way. In very, very simple terms, obviously we know that Hashem gave us the 613 mitzvahs as a way of creating a bond between us and Him. So obviously Shulchan Aruch is going to be the framework within which a healthy relationship can be built. But deeper than that, if a person wants a more intimate, personal relationship with the Bari Olam, how does one begin? Now certainly davening is a major, major part of that. But very often we might find davening, especially when a person does not learn about it in a deep way or go about it in the right way, davening can seem very a little bit too structured, even a little bit too masudar. It's something that you said a million times, your parents, your grandparents, going all the way back. It's a little bit impersonal. So what's the mahalach? What's the path to develop a personal relationship with the Bari Olam? That's the question. That's number one. And again, as I said, I think it's appropriate, this parsha, which is all about relationships, about building that personal bond. That's number one. Number two, I don't know if we'll have time to get to this, but an amazing thing takes place with Eleazar, when Eleazar is on his way to find a shidduch for Yitzchak, which is that he says in Pasuk, V'avai hayayim ela'ayim, that I came today, when he's relating the story over to Rivka's family. He says to them that I came today, I left Avram Avinu, and I came today to the well. Kvitzas Haderech. So Rashi brings him from Chazal, that was a miracle because it was a few days' travel. And he came in one day. Mikan shekav salei haaretz. He had this miracle, this phenomenon of Kvitzas Haderech, where somehow, in some strange way, the earth, the place that you're going to, is actually coming towards you as you go to it. Right? Kvitzas Haderech, the earth jumps to you. Mikan shekav salei haaretz. Okay, that's a gewaldige trick. It could be useful sometimes. Now we know when miracles happen, this is going to sound a little bit funny, but there's always names of Hashem that are involved. Divine names, mystical divine names of Hashem are involved in every nace, in every miracle. And if you know what you're doing, you can use those divine names to perform miracles like that. It's not always the best idea, but if you know what you're doing, it can happen. What is the divine name which creates this phenomenon of Kvitzas Haderech? It's a good question. So I'll tell you the name. I'm not going to tell you how to use it, but I'll tell you the name. The name, not that I know how, anyway, but the name is actually the Rosh Tevis of that pasuk. V'avo hayayim el ha'ayin. Eleazar said, I came today to the well. That's the letters Aleph, Hey, Vav, and Hey. Aleph, Hey, Vav, and Hey. That's the divine name with which Kvitzas Haderech takes place. It's a little bit flipped around in that pasuk. V'avo is Vav, Hayom is Hey, El is Aleph, and Ha'ayin is Hey. Aleph, Hey, Vav, Hey. What's the root of that name? Where's the first time in Chumash where that name appears, where then we'll be able to understand what the essence of that name is? The first time that name appears is actually the first pasuk of Chumash. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. Es hashamayim v'es haaretz. Es hashamayim is Aleph, Hey, Vav, Hey. Aleph, Hey, Vav, Hey. That's where Kvitzas Haderech comes from. Okay, that's what's brought down in this farm. Okay, so what does that mean? Why is it specifically that miracle was taking place when Eleazar is going to find the shidduch for Rivka? What is this? What is that? What does Kfitzas Haderech have to do with relationships? With Bill and the deepest relationship, the most important relationship of all, our relationship with Hashem. Okay, so hopefully if there's time, I'll get to that. If not, it'll be just like a cliffhanger, whatever. So it's like this. Very often when people think about developing a relationship with Hashem, they skip over probably the most important step, which is, in order to have a relationship, let's not forget about Hashem. Let's put Hashem to the side for a second. Let's talk about any relationship with people, a husband and wife, friends, siblings, parent, child, you name it, any relationship. Whenever you want to build such a relationship, it takes two to tango. You need two people, right? You need a person you want to connect to, and obviously there has to be a you, right? That's step one. The most important step in terms of building a relationship with Hashem is not just focusing on the fact that you believe in God. Obviously you believe in God if you're interested in having a relationship. The number one step that people overlook is that there has to be a you. There has to be a you. What does that mean? Of course there's me. What that means is that a person has to go through the proper steps to build one's stature up. There has to be a true, strong self-confidence. There has to be a true development of the self. And when there's a you, then you can go and to connect to him. But if there's no you, then the beginning of the relationship doesn't happen. Very often people come into davening, come into mitzvahs and so on, and they're only thinking about the other being in the relationship, and they're focused about trying to connect to him, but they don't spend the time of developing who they are and a healthy sense of self. If there's no you, then there's no relationship either. Now, what does this mean practically? What does this mean? What does it mean that you don't have a you? You know who you are. You look yourself in the mirror. You have a shadow. There's a you. So very, very quickly and very simply, as much as I can, there are basically 4 steps. Again, this is like practical. I just want to lay it down for you. In the Sform HaKadosh, we find there are 4 steps in developing a healthy sense of self. A healthy sense of self. And then once there's a you can go to him. But there has to be a you. What's step 1? Step 1 is really hinted to in the very mission that Eleazar was sent. Eleazar was a shliach. Eleazar was sent by Avraham Avinu on a mission. Eleazar, when he went on that mission, he saw himself as someone who's a Baal Achrayus. He saw himself as someone who has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. He took responsibility for himself. He saw himself as a shliach, as a messenger, as someone who has a mission, and who has responsibility because of that mission. The first step in developing a healthy sense of self and to see yourself as someone that's worthy of having a relationship with Hashem, because again, that's an important thing for a person to develop. It's not just having the relationship. You have to first realize that you're worthy of having that relationship. Because if you don't think you're worthy of having that relationship, the relationship is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Step 1 of building that self, that person who's then going to have the relationship with Hashem, is being someone who has a sense of responsibility. And we tend to think of responsibility as like a burden, something you don't really want to have to do. You'd rather just have someone else take care of everything for you. But the truth is, a person who just lives by being taken care of by others, even though there's a certain, obviously, there's some menucha, there's some, it's easy. But a person who doesn't have that sense of responsibility, that sense of achrayus, for himself and for other people as well, that person lacks a self. When he looks in the mirror, who does he see? Not much. A person desperately needs, in order to even begin that process of having a relationship with Hashem, is the person has to feel that their actions are weighty, that there's significance to what they do, that there's a mission that they have in this world, and they are responsible to carry out that mission. That sense of responsibility. Just like Eleazar, the beginning of the relationship between Yitzchak and Rivka, the beginning of that shidduch, came with Eleazar taking responsibility for making that shidduch happen. So that's step 1. Now again, that sounds like a little bit more Mussar oriented, but the truth is it's basic in terms of building a relationship. You cannot begin to have that relationship with Hashem unless you see yourself as someone who's a Baal Achrayus, someone who has the responsibility of taking care of themselves, of expressing their potential, of actualizing themselves. You have to be Baal Achrayus. That's number one. That's number one. Now, once you have that, once a person develops that, and again, all these steps, by the way, that we're going to go through now, it takes a long time for each one. I'm just laying it out for you. It takes a long time for each one. That's step number one, to be a Baal Achrayus, to not see yourself as just a meaningless piece of dust that's floating through space that has no responsibility and no effect in anything. You have to first believe in the fact that you have responsibility, which means that you have effect, that you have that you're able to cause effect in the universe. That's number one. Number two, the second step is, fine, you look in the mirror now and you see someone, right? You have a Baal Achrayus, you have a sense of responsibility. It means that you look in the mirror now, you see someone. Okay, now you want to go and develop this relationship. So again, a mashal. Let's give a mashal with a guy and girl going out on a date, right? The guy can look in the mirror and he can see himself as a responsible, well-adjusted, normal person, right? But if he goes on a date and he opens the door and he's thinking in the back of his head, there's no way she's going to like me. There's no way she's going to say yes to a second. I just know it. I'm out of her. She's way out of my league. Then you know what's going to happen. There's for sure not going to be a second date. For sure not. Why? Because he's going in mitchila with a mindset that this is not going to work. He's going in mitchila with a mindset that the other person in this relationship is really not so interested in having this relationship with me. That's for sure not going to work, right? I don't know much about business, but if you go on a sale, right, and going mitchila thinking that it's not going to work out, it's for sure not going to work out. You have to go with confidence. You have to believe that the girl you're dating, or you name it, whatever that partner is, you have to believe that the person is happy with this relationship, that the person also wants to have the relationship. If a poor person comes to the door, and ask for some tzedakah, there's two ways to give the tzedakah, right? You could just give them $1 and finish, or you can say, "Oh, it's so good you came. I'm so happy you came. Because I was whatever. It's such an opportunity for me to give tzedakah, whatever. Tov shabasa, like Baruch Hashem, you came." You know what happens with those words? When you say Baruch Hashem, it's so good to see you, right? You know what that means? That means that hopefully that the poor person, he just shifted gears. Hopefully by hearing those words. When he first opened the door, when he first knocked on the door, what was he thinking? That I'm just a burden to this guy. I'm just a burden. I have no choice. I have to collect money, whatever it is. But it's a burden for the Baal Habayis. But when the Baal Habayis opens the door and says, "No, Baruch, I'm so happy to see you," then all of a sudden now a relationship can form between the Baal Habayis and the Baal Tzedakah, because the person receiving the money doesn't feel that he's just a burden for the guy on the other end. The second step of building a relationship with Hashem is that step number one is you have to look in the mirror, you have to see something in the mirror. You have to see something in the mirror. You have to see someone who has a sense of responsibility, who takes the reins of one's own life, and a person who takes his life seriously. But step two is that you have to believe firmly, and you have to work on this a lot, that you have to believe that Hashem is happy to see you when you come. That when you knock on the door, so to speak, Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, whatever the case may be, when Hashem answers the door, He says, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, I'm so happy you came." You have to really believe that that's Hashem's reaction. Because if you don't think that's God's reaction, then guess what? There's no relationship that's going to come from that. Because you're going in mitchila thinking that you're just a burden. That's not going to be. That's step two. That's step two. What's step three? Step three is like this, let's say, I'll give you a mashal. Let's say you're at a wedding, right? Let's say you're at a wedding, and you see at the other end of the wedding a guy, an old classmate or something, or an old good friend you haven't seen for 15 years, right? So sometimes when that happens, it's either awkward and you pretend not to see the other person because you don't want to, you don't want to catch up the past 15 years. But let's say Lu Yitzur, you actually, it's nice. It's nice to see the guy. It's nice to see the guy. So you come over, you shake hands, maybe you give a hug, you say, "Oh, it's so good to see you. It was so nice, where you've been, how you doing," and so on and so forth, right? And at the time, you both legitimately mean it. Legitimately mean it. You're both really, you're happy to see each other. What happens when you then part ways? For the most part, you go back to the way it was, right? So there is such a phenomenon of where, let's put it this way, in let's say the Baal Habayis with the person receiving tzedakah, right? Let's say it's not good true. The guy knocks on the door and the balabas says, Baruch Hashem, I'm so happy you came. Really, it's very, very nice that you came. And he means it. And the poor person gets that message and he also sincerely feels uplifted by that. But there's always that thought in the back of the Ani's mind that that's what the balabais is thinking and feeling now. But in 10 minutes from now, when I'm gone, he's not thinking about me anymore. He's only thinking that he's only happy that I came once I came. And he sees me and he's like, oh, Taka, it's nice to see you, right? No different than those two guys by the wedding. You weren't thinking about that guy until you saw him. Once you saw him, you started thinking about him. But when you stop seeing him, finished. Step 3 in the relationship with Hashem is, again, this is all before you knock on the door. It's all before you knock on the door. But the third part of the relationship is, again, let's just to review. Step 1, you have to see yourself. You have to see something when you look in the mirror. You have to see yourself as a somebody with responsibility, with weightiness, with the ability to cause effect in the world. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to believe firmly that when you come knocking on the door, Hashem is happy to see you. Hashem is really legitimately happy to see you. But step 3, you have to believe, and this is a deeper belief, is that even before you come knocking on the door, Hashem is actually waiting for you to come. He's waiting for you to come. I'll tell you an amazing thing. A major part of davening, the majority of davening, is I think something, I don't know about you, but for me personally, it's something that I personally have a hard time relating to, which is praising Hashem. Most of davening is like that, right? We're praising Hashem, you're so great, you're so mighty, you're so exalted. If I could just speak for everyone, I think that part of davening is a little bit hard to relate to. The part of davening that we're all waiting for in the mood of davening is the part that we get to ask for things. But the part which is just about talking about how great God is, it's a little bit, how do you make that real? What's the avoid over there? So let me share with you a medrash, okay? Listen to this. There's a medrash in Devarim. B'shasha HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'abed ba'olamai. It says in medrash, listen to this, that when Hashem Yisbarach looks at the world, he's always looking at the world, what does Hashem see? So Hashem sees a world that, for the most part, people are sitting comfortably, those that are not so interested in serving Him. Hashem sees, in the case of the medrash over there, Hashem sees amphitheaters and, whatever the other ones, the Colosseums and things like that, where Goyim are doing their thing, and they're happy. Ubeis Mikdash Charav, but Hashem sees his Beis of Mikdash that's destroyed. Hashem sees anti-Semites that are successful and Jews that are nebuch suffering. So that's a pretty depressing thing. So what Chazal say? So Mustakel be'afalyon olam el hachriv, and Hashem becomes depressed. What's Chazal say? Chazal say Hashem becomes saddened by what he sees in the world. So Hashem needs a pick-me-up. Hashem needs some chizik. So kivan sheisol nechnasim shachris abate knisil abate midrashas. So it says the medrash. But when the Jewish people come to shul in the morning by shachris, umiyachtim shemai, and we talk about how great Hashem is, don't think that we're saying how great Hashem is because Kilu Hashem, it's as if we have to realize how great God is. God needs it. When we say Hashem, you're so awesome, you're so amazing, we're giving it kiviyachol. That's the measure saying. We're kiviyachol giving him a pat on the back and saying it's going to be okay. Don't worry. With all that being said, that the Beis Hamikdash is gone, you're still a great king, and it's gavaldik. It's unbelievable. Hashem is waiting for us to give him chizik. Hashem is waiting for us to give him strength. Miskavsim kol malachi yesharos. Once the Jewish people start singing Hashem's praises, not for us, we're singing Hashem's praises for him. He needs to be given some chizik. He needs to be told that he's good. He needs to be told that he's a good king, kiviyachol, so to speak. Miyad miskavsin kol malachi yesharos. Once we start, so all the malachim then come. Eitz HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they come to Hashem. V'oimrim, and they say, no, the Jewish people are right. Atu ad shalei nivra olam. Hashem, you existed before the world. You exist after the world. You're the king. You're always the king. Always was and ever will be. Unbelievable, Hashem. Right? Miyad noicha daita shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Immediately, Hashem feels better. Hashem feels better. That's what we're doing when we daven. Don't think of it as we need the relationship. Of course we need the relationship, but the Borei Olam needs it in a certain sense even more. The Borei Olam needs it even more to a certain extent. And when we're davening, when we're coming to the door, and Hashem says, "Oh, thank God," God says, "Thank God you came." He means that. He means that, and it's true that before we came, Hashem was thinking about it and hoping that we would come. That's That's how you begin to build a relationship. It's not like those two guys at the wedding where when they see each other, it's gewaldic, but when they don't see each other, they're not thinking about each other. Over here, Hashem is constantly thinking about us, and He wants us to come. He needs that chizuk. He needs that chizuk. That's step 3. There's one final step, which is, now if you get to these steps, then you're pretty good to go. That davening is going to be a good davening. The relationship can be built. The mitzvahs will be different. Yiddishkeit will be different. But there's one final step, which is the most profound of all. And this is where Kvitzas Derech comes in. The most profound final step is to begin to realize that there's one basic mistake that we've been making this entire time, which is that this entire time we've been comparing our relationship with Hashem like the poor person coming to the door, 2 people by the wedding, whatever. Where there's 2 different entities, and just one needs the other, one is looking forward to the other, one is making a relationship with the other, and so on. The final piece of the puzzle, and this is a deep idea, and it's hard to explain this in just 2 minutes, but the deepest part of the deepest step, the last part of the puzzle, is to realize that, one second, instead of thinking about us and God as being separate, we have to begin to uplift our way of thinking about reality, to uplift the way we think about ourselves, and to realize, like the Baal Tanya says in the name of Chazal, that what is a Jew? A Jew is not like this just being, it's a chashva thing, an important being that has a lot of power, and Hashem is looking forward to relate to you, but who are you in the deepest of senses? Well, who are each and every one of us in the deepest of senses is Chelek Elokam Yimal Mamish, a piece of the divine presence. We are reflections of Hashem in this world. When we're coming back to God, that's literally what it is. We're just coming back to Him. It's on some level a person who's a fragmented mind, kiviyachal, just being put back together. Kiviyachal. We have to develop that sense of who we are. That sense of who we are. When we talk about Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that Hashem is one, that doesn't mean a one God that's out there and we're here. It's a one God that's everywhere. And we're a part of Him. Everything that you eat, all the pleasure that you experience from food, the pleasure that you experience from any scene, you name it, from music, from anything, it's godliness that you're experiencing. And the reason why you're enjoying whatever the case may be is because there's a part of God in you, and there's a part of God in that entity, in that food. And when God merges with God, so to speak, it's an unbelievable experience. The deepest sense is that, again, why is God waiting for us? The reason why God is waiting for us is because we're a part of Him. We're a part of Him. Now that's a deep idea, and it takes a lot of time to develop that thought properly. But these are the 4 steps. This is the mystery of Kvitzas Derech. What's Kvitzas Derech? As I said, Kvitzas Derech is where, when you're going towards your destination, in truth, the destination is coming towards you. In order to have that relationship with Hashem, you have to believe desperately that as much as I want the relationship, it's the one that I'm having the relationship with wants it even more. That's Kvitzas Derech. It means I'm going to Him, but at the same time, He's quicker. He's coming to me. And this is why the divine name for Kvitzas Derech is Es Hashemayim V'Esaretz, heaven and earth. Heaven and earth. Es Hashemayim V'Esaretz means, heaven means God, and earth means us. But that divine name that unites the two, that shows how in truth they're only one. All there is the one God, and we're a part of Him. And because we're a part of Him, it's only natural and normal for everything to want to return to its source. That's part of Teva. Part of nature is that everything eventually returns to where it came from. Where do we come from? We came from Him. That's where we come from. That's Kvitzas Derech. At the same time we're coming to Him, He's coming to us. Why? Because Es Hashemayim V'Esaretz, heaven and earth, are ultimately one. Let me end off with a quick story. I know it's late, but this is just, it's an interesting story. I just saw it recently. There's a Maisa, one of the great students of the Baal Shem Tov was the Toldos Yaakov Yosef of Polnoya. So he was a big tzaddik. The Maisa goes that he was once in the Beis Medrash and he saw, a quick, it amounts 2 minutes. He saw in the Beis Medrash that there was a new person. He never noticed this guy before, and this person was like pacing back and forth, seemed to be like lost in thought, like thinking about something difficult, a Gemara, or whatever the case may be. And the Toldos, went over to say Shalom Aleichem. He asked, Rabbi Yid, where are you from? And the guy gave him like one of those, like, wait a minute, Okay, fine. So after a couple minutes, the Toldos goes over again. Rabbi Yid, where are you from? What's your name? And so he said, this is what the guy says, what's the difference? Like, what do you like? Whatever. So we're gonna have pleasantries, right? Now that's what the guy, this cold-hearted guy, right? Yeah. I'm gonna tell you my name. You're gonna tell me your name, and we're never gonna see each other again. Like, what? So what are we wasting time for? So the Talmud said like this. He said, you know why I want to know your name? Because there is a small possibility that we'll eventually see each other once again, maybe in 10 years, who knows. And when we meet, we'll have this, we'll be able to refer back to this conversation, and we'll have something to build from. And maybe in that conversation, one of us will say, Baruch Hashem. Maybe one of us will say, thank God. In the middle of the conversation, you'll say, oh, how you've been? Like, in other words, if I just meet you right now, okay, what's your name? Very nice. But if I've met you before, the most obvious question is, how have you been? And when I ask you how you've been, your most likely response is, Baruch Hashem. And the Talmud said, and do you have any idea what happens in Shemaim when a Jew says, thank God? He said in Pasuk, it says in Pasuk, Ata Kadosh, that Hashem, you're holy. Yoshev Tilas Yisrael, you're anticipating the praise of the Jewish people. Said the Talmud Yaakov Yosef, Hashem is sitting and waiting for a Jew to say thank God, for a Jew to say Baruch Hashem. Hashem is waiting for that. So that's what the Talmud said. Okay. The Talmud goes to the other room, comes back, and the guy disappears. Now this is where it becomes like a Chassidish Maisa. Until now it's been just like a nice, now it becomes a Chassidish Maisa. So he goes to the other room, the Talmud comes back in a minute, and the guy vanishes, right? Where'd he go? So the Talmud goes to the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov said, that person that you met, that was Eliyahu Navi. And Eliyahu Navi wanted to get that vort out of you. So he put it in a situation where he was this, and it made a whole situation to get that vort out of you. That's what it means, Yoshev Tilas Yisrael. Hashem is anticipating, he's waiting. So we go daven mincha right now. Hashem Yisrael has been waiting since this morning, since we daven Shacharis. He's been sitting and waiting because he needs some chizik. He needs to be told that he's a gadol, gibar, v'anoira. He needs to be told that it's going to be okay. So that's what we're going to give Hashem. We're going to give him some chizik. That's mincha. So Rabbi Hashem should help that Hashem should have chizik. He should give us chizik, and we should be able to see the redemption of our people. We just go tzedek and here remain. Amen.
Hashem, thank you, Hashem.